But first, let me get some foreign affairs out of the way just quickly. News that you won't actually get anywhere else. First, for instance, history was made today in Canada. Canadians have just re-elected their first black Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, of the left-wing Liberal Party. Or, then again, maybe they have just re-elected their first Indian Prime Minister, who's again Justin Trudeau. Or maybe they've re-elected their first Sikh Prime Minister. Or maybe their First Nations or Canadian Indian Prime Minister. You know, I guess it really depends on what dress-up box was in Trudeau's office at the time. Now, how Canada re-elected someone who's simultaneously so woke and so culturally cringing, yet so hypocritical, I mean, Prime Minister Justin Blackface, that to me is amazing. Then again, to say that he's won is perhaps a little bit too flattering. Trudeau's Liberals won just a third of the vote this time, losing around 20 seats, and they'll have to form a minority government with even more left-wing parties. So don't count on Canada to resist the culture wars, not under this chameleon, Justin Trudeau, and particularly not now they're so weakened. More on this later with the panel. But another foreign update. US President Donald Trump, another triumph, quite possibly. Except the mainstream media won't tell you. I mean, for a couple of weeks now, commentators have been trashing Trump instead as a sellout, a flake, a backstabber, for pulling out the few dozen US troops left in northern Syria and leaving Turkey clear to invade northern Syria and set up a 32-kilometre border area to clean out the main Kurdish militia there. Now, that is a militia which, yes, did help the US to destroy the Islamic State, but which is closely linked to a Stalinist terrorist group, the PKK. We list them as terrorists here in Australia. And the PKK has fought Turkey for decades to create a Kurdish state. That bit, of course, is rarely mentioned by news outlets here, which seem programmed to see Trump as a fool and a failure.
The Americans have left in a weak position.
The US withdrawal shores up Iran and Russia's positions there.
Do you think what you're hearing shows that Australia is willing to muscle up to the United States and say if it thinks the US has done the wrong thing?
But what do his critics actually want from Trump here? A war with Turkey? A Kurdish terrorist group creating its own destabilising state? Turkey forced to hand over its own Kurdish areas? And do they really expect the United States to send its young men and women to fight and die in this long war between the Turks and the Kurds? A war that's cost 40,000 lives over the past few decades. Trump overnight was brutal but right. This is not a war that most Americans want to fight.
We never agreed to protect the Kurds. We fought with them for 3.5 to 4 years. We never agreed to protect the Kurds for the rest of their lives.
Now, if you think, oh, well, look, there really should be a peacekeeping army there between the Kurds and the Turks, groups that most people never give a thought to, well, tell the United Nations, because that sort of thing is its job. But not a single country has asked the UN to get involved because most are like Trump. It's not worth their soldiers dying for.
Much easier for me to let our soldiers be there, let them continue to die. I go out to Dover and I meet parents. It's not a pleasant thing. It's the most unpleasant thing I do. I send many letters home to parents, and I speak to parents, but I send many letters home to parents. Their son or daughter has been killed over in the Middle East. For what? For what? There are times to fight, and there are times not to fight.
And now the good news. Trump's strategy so far seems to be working. There's a temporary ceasefire between Turkey and the Kurds for a week now. Those Kurdish militias have meanwhile found a new protector, Syria, and its Russian ally. And Syrian Kurds, by the way, have meanwhile shown the departing US soldiers how real their friendship was. Syria and Turkey, meanwhile, talking privately to make sure this doesn't end in a regional war. Well, it may yet. I mean, this is the Middle East. But American soldiers, they won't be doing any more of the dying in Syria. And for Trump and most Americans, that is a very big success.